Hi and welcome to part 4 of Spacebound by Tom Fletcher, continuing from track 16, Space Sleepover. Beep Bop led us down the corridor. Beep Bop, the Squid Sisters. Beep Bop bleeped, and the first star-shaped door swooshed open to reveal what looked like an aquarium with a huge tank filled with purple water. Purple water, I know. When Bash came on holiday with us once, Dad told us that if we peed in the swimming pool it would turn the water purple to alert the lifeguard and they'd have to shut the pool to clean it. I'll be honest, I've peed in almost every pool I've ever swam in, and none of them have turned purple, so I'm pretty sure Dad was lying. But I'm still not going to be swimming with the Squid Sisters anytime soon. Beep Bop, you must remain in your dressing rooms overnight. Anyone that leaves will be automatically disqualified and their planet pulverised. Beeped Beep Bop. The tentacled triplets slithered inside, plunged into their potentially pea-filled purple pool, and the door swished shut. Beep Bop, the furry worslets. Beep Bop called, and the next star-shaped door slid open. An explosion of pink fur flopped out into the corridor. Inside, it looked like a forest of pink fluff with fluorescent flowers flowing in simulated breeze. The equally pink and furry band disappeared and, swoosh, the star door shut them inside their dressing room, and we were moved on by Beep Bop. One by one, Bash, Neela and I caught little glimpses of the alien worlds that our rival bands called home. Dave and the pincers crabbed sideways into a room filled with green sand. Stargirl did a knee slide into a room that looked like a rock star's dream, with guitars covering the walls and 2 windows shaped like her starry glasses, which looked out onto the actual stars. The gassy giants bumbled and trumped their way into a room filled with green bum gas. Pixel Shift, the shapeshifters, walked into a room that looked like a level in an awesome rainbow-coloured video game. As their door swooshed shut, I suddenly realised something. Hey, where are all the bands who lost round 1? I asked Bash, who, judging by the look on his face, also hadn't noticed their absence. Now that I came to think of it, except for Slime Bob and Gloop, the eclipsed bands hadn't been in catering either. But there was no time to dwell on it as Beep Bop had come to the final doorway. We were next. Beep Bop, the Earthlings, enjoy your stay. Beep Bop. Beep Bop said as the star door slid open to reveal. It's our garage, Bash gasped, dropping his backpack on the floor in disbelief. Yeah, only bigger, Neela added. Way bigger. And way better, I said, stepping inside the most ultimate garage any earthbound could dream of. Firstly, it wasn't cold like our garage at home, and there was no dust or dirt anywhere. The floor was as clean as a dinner plate. There's an actual stage, Neela squeaked excitedly as she spotted a huge practice stage with our instruments set up and ready to rock. Mum would love those lights, I said, admiring the ceiling, which was covered in millions of multicoloured fairy lights, just like our garage back home. There were cupboards fully stocked with all our favourite Earth snacks, cheese and Marmite sandwiches, peanut butter chocolate cups for me, crisps for Bash, and even a bowl of steamed broccoli for Neela, which was just a waste of a bowl if you ask me. There was a super-sized sofa in front of a super-duper high-definition TV that was showing cartoons from home, and one whole wall was covered with video game arcade machines. What does this button do? Bash said, spotting an impossibly tempting red button on the wall. I guess Megavolt must really like red buttons. Hang on. It's not going to eclipse Earth, is it? I said. Only one way to find out. Neela shrugged, reached out her finger and gave the button a push. Suddenly, the huge garage door jolted with the usual metallic clang and began to open, allowing a brilliant slice of starlight through the expanding horizontal crack. First I worried we were going to be sucked out into space. I'd seen that happen in one of Bash's favourite sci-fi films, but when my eyes adjusted I realised we were looking through an enormous panoramic window at the most awesome view across the infinite cosmos. Whoa! We all gawped together. There were billions of stars as far as our human eyes could see, swirling nebulas and galaxies that I'd only ever seen in Bash's dorky space books, and right at the centre of this incredible view was the whopping great, mahoosive ball of blackness. Spectra, Neela said in awe, and I remembered that this was the name of the black hole where Megavolt's superstar bandmate used to be. I don't get why everyone makes such a big deal about black holes. Looks like a ball of nothing to me, I said, shrugging. Bash looked at me as though I was bonkers. That ball of nothing is one of the most mysterious and powerful things in the universe, Bash said. Had a feeling I was about to get one of his space lessons. This time, though, I guessed it might be quite useful to listen. When a star gets too big and goes supernova. What a nova? Supernova, when it explodes, well, it doesn't just disappear, it leaves something behind. Gravity, an invisible force pulling everything towards it. Everything? I asked suspiciously. Everything, Bash confirmed. Even light? Of course. Why do you think it's black? Even light can't escape, Bash said with a smug grin. I thought hard for a few minutes. There had to be something that a black hole couldn't pull in. All right, smarty pants, what about time? It can't suck in time, I said, feeling pretty confident that I caught him out with that one. Even time, Bash whispered dramatically. The closer you get to a black hole, the slower time moves. I won't lie, the whole thing made my head hurt. As I stared out at the billions of stars and planets ahead of us, I wondered where Earth was. I found myself thinking about battered sausage and chips from Fred's, the real garage, Mum and Dad. Would I ever see any of them again? It's out there somewhere, I sighed. What is? Neela asked. Home, I said. I realised Bash had gone quiet too, staring out in the same way that I was. Do you really think we can do it? Can we save the world? He asked. The truth is I wasn't sure, but I spoke without hesitation, like any good lead singer should. Absolutely. All we have to do is beat those bands, save the world, and we'll be beamed back to the school hall like we never left. Guys, when you see what I've just found, you might not even want to go back to Earth, Bash said, pointing. He had spotted the coolest part of our dressing room, the only thing cooler than a room with a view into an actual black hole. Triple-height bunk beds. I stared up at the 3 stacked space beds, reaching from the floor to the dangling fairy lights above. I didn't think these things existed in real life, I whispered in amazement. We're the first humans in history to make contact with life from other planets, on board a spaceship full of actual aliens, and you're finding bunk beds hard to believe. Neela laughed. Triple-height bunk beds, said Bash in awe. He ran straight over to the bunk beds, and I knew he was about to climb straight to the top to try to claim the highest one, because we all know that the top bunk is the best. Well, he tried to climb to the top, but quickly discovered that there wasn't a ladder. Let me show you how it's done, I said, running over to join Bash. The only problem was that I couldn't climb up either. I just leapt up and down like a wally. The top bunk was simply too high. That's impossible. No one can reach that. I scratched my head, looking up to the unreachable top bunk. Oh, yeah, said Neela, rolling up her sleeves. She took a big run up and leapt over our heads. Splat. Nope, she didn't make it either. Our dream of triple-height bunk beds was shattered. No wonder you never see them on Earth. They don't work. Until Bash noticed something, a lever on the side of the bunk beds that said, pull here. We jumped for it at the same time and pulled it all the way down together until it clicked. Swish. There was a sudden hiss of air, and my feet started to leave the floor. I'm flying, I gasped as I floated away from the floor of our spaceship dressing room and towards the ceiling. The lever turns the gravity off. Whee! Bash squeaked with excitement as he pushed hard off the ground and went spinning through the air. Now, I call top bunk, said Neela, with a grin as she soared towards it. No chance, I yelled. It's mine, shouted Bash. The 3 of us laughed and cheered as we pushed and bobbed around the air of the dressing room, walking on the ceiling and bouncing off the walls. Suddenly the top bunk didn't matter. We were all just enjoying being gravity-free. No invisible force pulling us down. No up or sideways, only open space in which to move around. I did a forward flip over to the cupboard, found a jumbo-sized bag of marshmallows, the ultimate sleepover snack, even in space, and ripped the bag open, sending pink and white balls of deliciousness floating in the air. We spent the rest of the night flying around catching them in our mouths. At some point, I guess we fell asleep, because the next thing I knew it was morning and I was waking up to the feeling of warm sunlight shining on my face. Morning, Bash yawned from the top bunk. Morning, I replied from the middle bunk. Neela groaned like a zombie from down below. Breakfast, must eat breakfast. Neela was one of those people who had to eat something before she could function like a normal human being. Let's see if Garble has left anything for us in the fridge, I said, hoping there might be some leftover pizza. We all climbed out of our bunks and headed to the big silver refrigerator. When we got close to it, we realised it was covered in a layer of frost, thick enough to write in it, like a car windows in the winter. It's stuck, Bash said, yanking on the cool metal handle. Let me try, Neela said, giving it a go, but also failing to open it. I grabbed hold too, and we all pulled together. Clank! The heavy metal door swung open, and a swoosh of cold air rushed out, along with a white cloud of frozen fog. We wafted it away and discovered far more than breakfast. 2 big round eyeballs blinked open and stared right at us through the icy mist. There was something in the fridge. Something alive. Track 17. We are not alone. We ran for our lives and leapt behind the sofa. Did you see that? I spluttered nervously. No, I was too busy screaming, Neela replied. What about you, Bash? Bash? There was no reply. Bash wasn't behind the sofa with us. Where is he? I panicked. I don't know. I thought he was right with us, Neela whispered. Then we heard it. The last sound you want to hear when your friend is missing in a room with a strange creature from outer space. Crunch, chomp, gulp. I'm not really sure what happened next. I've never felt it before, but I guess it was my best friend, superpowers kicking in. Without thinking twice, I hurdled the sofa, closed my eyes and jumped in the direction of the crunching creature, ready to sacrifice myself to save my bandmate from the jaws of the evil space alien. "Nobody eats my drummer!" I hollered heroically as I slammed my shoulder into the creature's body and tackled it to the ground. Except it wasn't the strange fridge monster that I tackled. "What are you doing, you big twerp?" Bash winced, pushing me away. "Sorry, I thought you were being eaten by an alien," I said, helping Bash to his feet. "So, if you weren't being eaten, what was that crunching sound?" Neela asked, climbing out from behind the sofa. Crunch, chomp, gulp. We heard it again. This time we didn't hide. Instead, we turned around to see that the fridge door was wide open. The creature responsible for the noises was standing silhouetted in the yellow glow, munching on. Not Bash, but last night's leftover marshmallows. "Who are you?" I asked, trembling, and the chomping creature paused, turning slowly to face us. Silently it stepped closer. I saw a pair of curious, friendly brown eyes and a head of fuzzy, black hair. To my surprise, I recognized the creature immediately. I had even drawn his picture just a few days ago. I grabbed my book of rock, flicked back to my notes from Mr. Lloyd's science class, held my sketchbook up to show Bash and Neela. "It's Armstrong, the astro ape," I blurted, and the name badge on his spacesuit confirmed it. The chimpanzee bounced up and down and clapped with excitement. "Greetings, children of Earth." The three of us just stared at him. Just checking. Did anyone else hear the chimpanzee in a spacesuit talk?" Bash muttered. "Yup," Neela and I replied in disbelief. "Hi," I said to the chimp. "Can you understand what we're saying?" Armstrong reached inside his spacesuit and pulled out his own translation pass, just like the ones we were wearing round our necks. "Of course, genius," Bash said. "Armstrong is very happy to be reunited with creatures from Armstrong's planet. Tell Armstrong, how is Earth these days? Still in one piece, I hope. What country are you from? So many questions." Armstrong leapt around the dressing room, bouncing off the walls and the ceiling excitedly. "Well, actually, we probably have some questions too," Neela said. "Ooh, questions for Armstrong. How fun. Let me guess, do chimpanzees really like bananas?" Armstrong laughed. "How did you know I was going to ask that?" I said. "No, not that question," Neela said, rolling her eyes at me. "More like, what happened to the Minerva 7? Armstrong suddenly fell silent and looked very concerned. "Oh, you know about the Minerva 7, he said, bowing his head sadly. "It was not Armstrong's fault. Armstrong did what Armstrong was told. Armstrong pressed all the right buttons in the right order, but instead of releasing the special satellite, a big blue fuzzy beam appeared and zap! The next thing Armstrong knew, the rocket had vanished and Armstrong was aboard this space stadium." "A big blue fuzzy beam," Bash repeated, looking at me and Neela. "That sounds familiar." "So megavolt is the reason the Minerva 7 vanished," I realised. "But that was years and years ago. Shouldn't you be really old by now?" "Oh yes, Armstrong should be very, very old. Armstrong should be a shriveled, wrinkly, probably dead chimp. But Armstrong sleeps long snoozes in Armstrong's hypersleep pod. Armstrong says chimpy fresh." He smiled a toothy grin, making us all laugh. "Oh, it's a hypersleep pod, not a fridge," I said, looking at the cold silver box we'd thought might contain some breakfast for us. "But why would Megavolt beam you up?" Neela asked. "It makes no sense." "Megavolt did not mean to beam Armstrong. Megavolt beamed Armstrong by misaccident," Armstrong explained. "Then what was Megavolt really trying to beam up?" I asked. But before Armstrong could answer, the star-shaped door to our dressing room swished open. "Follow Beep Bop! Follow Beep Bop!" Beep Bop chattered, and from somewhere in the distance the roar of a huge crowd could be heard chanting something over and over. "Round 2! Round 2! Round 2! Neela, Bash and I looked at each other. It was time to go and save the world again. Track 18, Round 2, Rock Till You Drop. 8 bands remain, 8 planets at risk. Who will rock? Whose home will be pulverised? Today our bands will face Round 2 for their chance, should they choose it, to battle the one and only Megavolt in tomorrow's grand final. Welcome back to the greatest show in the universe. It's the intergalactic battle of the bands. As Quark Blisterbum made his announcement, we found ourselves rising out of a stage in the dead centre of the stadium, under the massive roof that was open to the stars, surrounded by the roaring crowd. This stage was a giant circle and had been divided into 8 sections, like 8 slices of pie or pizza. 1 slice of stage for each of the remaining bands. I whispered to Bash and Neela as suddenly those other bands started rising out of the stage too. A huge screen hovering high above displayed the names of the bands ready to battle in round 2. 1. The Furry Worslets. 2. The Squid Sisters. 3. The Gassy Giants. 4. The Big Bangs. 5. Stargirl. 6. The Pincers. 7. Pixel Shift. 8. The Earthlings. Our names looked more like a player select screen in a video game than a real-life space battle, and I had to keep telling myself, this is actually happening, George. You're in space. But I was even finding it hard to believe my own voice in my own head. Where are the other bands? Bash asked. The ones who were knocked out yesterday. I looked around and realised they still weren't with us. Perhaps Slime Bob and Gloop had been with us in catering so that they could re-gellify, but now they were nowhere to be seen. Where were they and the other knocked out bands? Was Megavolt forcing them to wait in a room that constantly reminded them of the planet they'd failed to save? Was I asking too many questions instead of focusing on the battle? Probably, but I was about to get some answers. The cheers from the crowd suddenly changed to deafening boos. There they are, Neela said, and pointed to the 8 defeated bands as they were ushered into their own section of the stadium. It almost looked like some kind of space prison, only instead of being behind bars, the bands were being kept behind red laser beams that fizzed and sparked. Oh, just look at the poor little eliminated bands, Quark, Blisterbum said in a babyish voice, pretending to look sad. He'd look really sad if his planet was in danger of being destroyed, I whispered, as the floating screens all flicked to show the 8 eclipsed planets, swirling silently in thick, dark shadow. But as sad as it was, there was no time to dwell on other planets being destroyed. The deep sinking in my tummy made me realise that Earth could be next, and we could soon be joining them in the laser beam prison for aliens without a home. Before we begin, please be upstanding for rock royalty, the reigning champion, the almighty, all-powerful Megavolt. Quark, Blisterbum boomed, and the back of the stage split in half to reveal the blindingly hot orange glow of Megavolt as he swaggered into the stadium and slumped his scorching bottom onto his molten throne. Silence fell. The whole stadium waited. Let's rock, Megavolt declared. Our instruments suddenly began to appear right in front of us, as though they'd been beamed in from backstage. All right, folks, round 2 is a game we like to call Rock Till You Drop. It's an all-out, non-stop music marathon, and the last 4 bands rocking go through, Quark explained. Rock till you drop? What does that mean? Asked Neela. It means we don't have to sound good. We just can't stop, Bash said. Though we might have a chance, Neela said, grabbing the school guitar. Start playing, I yelled, and whatever you do, don't stop. What song? Bash said, as his drum kit finished materialising around him. That's when I realised that I had already written the perfect song to get us through this round. The song inspired by Mr. Lloyd's never-ending science class. The longest song ever, I said. Of course, Neela said, grinning, as I flicked back through my book of rock to page 31, where I'd scribbled the lyrics and threw it down on the stage between us. We'd only played this a couple of times, in the garage, the night before we were beamed up, but I had a good feeling about it. Neela cracked her knuckles and slung her guitar strap over her shoulder. I turned up the volume dial on my bass to full and gave Bash a nod. 1, 2, 3, 4, he screamed and started wildly smashing the drums, while Neela blasted out the only 3 power chords a rock band from Earth needs, E, A and B. It didn't sound great, in fact it sounded pretty awful, but this round wasn't about who could rock the best, it was about who could rock the longest. I took a deep breath, faced our alien competitors and started singing. It's the longest song, it goes on and on. You can sing this song forever. The longest song, it goes on and on. When will this song end? Never. Never, shouted Bash and Neela on backing vocals. With 8 bands playing at the same time, the noise in the stadium was at eardrum popping levels. If we were at home in the garage, Dad would have been straight in to tell us to turn it down. But we were in space now, and there was a planet that needed saving. This wasn't the time for grown-up health and safety sensibleness. Sorry, Mum and Dad. On the stage around us, the other bands were rocking out too. I could see Stargirl's super-fast fingers twiddling around furiously on the frets of her glistening guitar, which was changing colour as she played. Awesome! The Pincers were happily jamming out some melodic beach tunes, and on the slice of stage pie next to them, the Pincers also looked to be happily jamming out some melodic beach tunes. That's when I realised that one band must have been Pixel Shift, who'd shapeshifted to look like the Pincers and were replicating their happy-making vibes. We played and played and played, and what felt like hours of non-stop playing, I could tell that not everyone was coping well with repeated rocking out. The Thursday Worslets on their own slice of pie looked exhausted. They might have sounded better than us, but there was no way they could keep this up forever. But us, we could play badly all day. As the round dragged on, I had a feeling it wouldn't be long before the first band dropped out of this rock-out. Track 19, the first to fall. There was a sudden shudder, followed by the whirring and clanking of mechanical gears. Without warning, the stage under our feet shifted. We all lurched and wobbled. I think we're starting to spin, shouted Bash over the booming beats of the drums, and he was right. The whole stage was slowly spinning like a carousel at a fairground. It wasn't enough to distract us, though. We kept facing forward. We kept playing. They'll have to do a lot worse than that to stop us from rocking, I shouted back to Bash. I spoke too soon. The entire stage lifted into the air, rising high over the stadium floor, while spinning faster and faster. From a distance, I imagined it looked like a giant spinning plate on a stick. Crack! The stage shook under our feet. Earthquake! Bash shouted as we played. Don't be ridiculous, we're not on Earth, Neela said. All right, spacequake, he corrected himself. Boom! There was another shudder from under our feet, and I realised that the spacequake actually came from the big bangs, who had banged and bashed their slice of the stage pie so much with their big beaters that there was now a narrow crack in the shiny floor. A few more beats, and they're goners, Neela shouted, and she was right. The crack split wide open under their feet, and the big bangs fell into it, and out of the competition, landing in the laser beam prison with the other eliminated bands. The crowd went wild. The big bangs are out, cheered Quark Blisterbum. Now we know why it's called Rock Till You Drop, Neela said as we peered into the gaping hole in the stage opposite us, while still playing. Gear off, someone growled. We turned and saw that the furry worslets had become so dizzy from the spinning stage that they'd got their candy floss pink fur tangled together in a knot. You get off me, the other furry worslet replied, but the more they bickered with each other, the less they concentrated on what they were playing. And it did not sound good. Twang, boing, gong, until they fumbled to a halt. The crowd started chanting, drop, 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 drop. Megavolt raised his hand and brought it crashing down onto a big, way too dramatic red button on the arm of his throne, and whoosh! The furry worslet's slice of stage suddenly opened, and they disappeared from the battle in a blur of pink fur, which gave them a soft, fluffy landing in the prison below. The furry worslets are gone! Cried Quark Blisterbum, and the audience cheered. There were 6 bands left now. If 2 more dropped, we would be through, and Earth would be safe for another round. All we had to do was keep playing. The same 3 chords, the same drum fills, the same lyrics. It's the longest song, it goes on and on. You can sing this song forever. The longest song, it goes on and on. Even though we weren't trying to sound good, I realised that the more we played, the better we played. As we looped around the longest song ever for what felt like the 5 millionth time, we weren't sucking quite as much as we usually did. In fact, we actually sounded pretty average, which was great for us. Neela threw in some little riffs between the chords. Bash added some new fills he'd not tried before. They were experimenting. Grinning, I took a deep breath and I did the same. I once heard Max Riff say, "You've got to walk that bass line like a dog in the park." And as my fingers walked up and down Cosmo's smooth frets, I finally knew what he meant. Suddenly the stage started spinning faster. Not just a little faster. We were whizzing round like a tornado. Just keep playing, Bash shouted as he smashed the cymbals. Slop! Squish, the lead singer of the Squid Sisters, was slipping backwards towards the edge of the spinning stage. All eyes were on the Squid Sisters. Can they hold on, or will they be taking the plunge? Jeered Quark Blisterbum. Squish slapped on all her tentacles to the stage, trying to hold on, but it was no use. She was just too slippery. She came unstuck and slid all the way to the edge of the stage, wiping out Squiddle and Squaddle on her way, and they all went toppling over together. Another one bites the dust as the Squid Sisters join the eliminated. Only one more to go. Who will it be? Teased Quark. The tension built in the stadium. This was it. We were truly through. Round 2. We were nearly there. We just had to hang on and keep rocking until one of the other bands dropped. How hard could it be? Snap. The sound came from somewhere behind me. Somewhere close. A little too close. I broke a stick, screamed Bash. I spun around to see half a drumstick in his hand. He'd rocked so hard that it snapped in 2. Don't stop playing, I yelled, and Bash kept the beat going with his foot, stomping on the kick drum. Thud, thud, thud. Now a lot of people would think, that's it, they're done for. How can they play without a drummer? But not me. I'd seen the Max Riff Backstage Tour documentary hundreds of times, and their drummer breaks his drumsticks in pretty much every show. All he does is reach down for his spare set of sticks and then keeps rocking like nothing happened. It always looks super cool. No big deal. That's why drummers always have extra drumsticks when they play, and why Bash always keeps his backpack full of spares on him at all times. Handy for when the pincers had needed them yesterday, and handy for right now. Just use the spare sticks in your backpack, I shouted. Keeping the beat thumping with his foot, Bash reached behind him, and his mouth dropped. My backpack, he gulped. It's not here. I turned my head away from the microphone long enough to confirm that there was nothing but thin air in the place on Bash's back, where his backpack would usually be. I must have left it in the dressing room, he said. I didn't say it out loud, but what I was thinking then was, that's it, we're done for. How can we play without a drummer? In the distance, I saw tiny solar flares erupt from Megavolt's mouth as he burst into delighted laughter at our fail. The other bands around us were showing zero signs of giving up, all except for the gassy giants, whose green stinky trumpets were running out of stink with every trump they puffed. That's our only hope, I thought to myself. If only we can hold on for just a little longer. Oh dear, I heard Quark Blisterbum say. It looks like the Earthlings are in trouble. Their drummer has broken a drumstick and doesn't have a spare. Could this be the final performance for the humans? Over the thud, thud, thud of Bash's kick drum, I heard the crowd chanting, "Drop, drop, drop." What do we do? Neela screamed. I don't know. Play a solo or something, I shouted back. I can't play a solo on this thing, Neela said, shaking the school guitar in frustration and retreating behind her fringe. Megavolt suddenly appeared on the giant screen. We watched as he raised his dripping hot hand in the air and held it over the big red button, ready to drop us. Drop, 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 the stadium roared. This is it, Bash said, and a tear ran down his cheek. I'm sorry, Planet Earth. Megavolt clenched his fiery fist. There was nothing we could do. The Earthlings had failed Planet Earth. Still playing, I closed my eyes, ready for the drop. But it never came. Instead, the crowd stopped chanting and let out a wild squeal of excitement. What's this? Exclaimed Quark. A strange creature has broken into the stadium. It appears that we have a stage invader. I opened my eyes. All the spotlights had spun around to illuminate this invader. I saw a small creature wearing a familiar silver spacesuit. I saw a pair of curious, friendly brown eyes and a head of fuzzy black hair. It was swinging across the stadium, flipping from spotlight to spotlight, until he landed on our slice of the stage. Track 20. Armstrong, the stage invader. Armstrong, we cheered. What are you doing here? Armstrong thought you might be needing these, the Astro Ape said, and we saw then that he was wearing Bash's backpack, and had pulled out a spare pair of drumsticks like a medieval knight unsheathing a sword from its scabbard. I don't believe my eye, Quark Blisterbum said. It seems the Earthlings have a special guest for their performance. He can't fly a rocket, but let's see if he can rock it. Fresh out of hypersleep, it's Armstrong. Armstrong leapt onto Bash's kick drum, and Bash reached out and grabbed the drumsticks like an Olympic relay runner snatching the baton. Then Armstrong jumped right over the drum kit and landed on Bash's shoulders. That's right, Bash was playing the drums on a spaceship with a chimpanzee astronaut on his shoulders. Awesome! The crowd went wild, but the best was yet to come, because as Bash played a fill around his tom-toms with his fresh set of sticks, the Astro Ape pulled out his own set of drumsticks from the trusty backpack. Armstrong has always wanted to play the drums, Armstrong said with a twinkle in his big dark eyes. He spun the sticks around in his long ape fingers and then joined Bash for the most epic double-drummer drum solo I've ever seen. What am I saying? It's the only double-drummer drum solo I've ever seen. Together they looked like some strange mutant drum monster with 2 heads and 4 arms that were windmilling around the kit so quickly I could barely see them. Bang, crash, thud, whack, clack, clack, clack. The fills and rolls were faster than any I'd ever seen before, and I knew if this had been round 1, the rockometer would have exploded. But this was round 2, rock till you drop, and we were back in business with fresh sticks and a special guest. Bring it on! Neela dived into some heavy power chords, and I launched back into another chorus. The longest, longest, longest song. The longest, longest, longest song. The longest, longest, longest song. This is the longest song. And the stadium joined in, chanting, So long! Suddenly, there was a pathetic puff of green gas from the gassy giants, and a horrid stink that smelled even worse than the time Bash blocked our toilet at home. It wasn't pretty. And it looks like the gassy giants are out of gas, Quark chuckled, and Megavolt slammed his burning fist down on his red button, sending the trumping band out of the competition. Round 2 is complete, Quark announced as our instruments were beamed out of our hands and the crowd went wild. There were only 4 bands left on the stage, the Pincers, Pixel Shift, Stargirl, and us. The rest had joined the other defeated bands in the laser beam prison. We did it, Neela cheered, high-fiving Bash and Armstrong. That was so awesome when you swung in out of nowhere. You totally saved the show, Bash said to Armstrong. Armstrong found drumsticks in the room. Armstrong couldn't let the Earthlings lose, replied the Astro Ape. Yeah, but when you showed up, I thought we were going to be disqualified. I didn't think you'd be allowed to join the band. You're not human, I said. He calls Earth home, so he's an Earthling. As long as you're from Earth, you can fight for Earth in the battle, Neela explained. Oh, I see. Wait, how do you know that? I asked Neela. She seemed to suddenly know an awful lot about the rules of the intergalactic battle of the bands. She froze for a moment, and I'm pretty sure she was about to tell me something important. But the moment was interrupted by the crowd chanting, "Eclipse! Eclipse! Eclipse!" Megavolt gave them what they wanted and blasted his shadow beam of darkness across the universe, selecting the planets upon which he would soon feast. Megavolt instantly glowed hotter and brighter with just the thought of the planetary picnic he would be devouring. "More!" Megavolt demanded once the planets were dark. The crowd went wild again, and Quark Blisterbum's voice boomed across the stadium with a surprise announcement. "You heard his mightiness. Do you want more?" Quark said, and the crowd responded with frenzied screams. "Then don't go anywhere, because we're heading straight into Lightspeed Elimination." And that is where we will leave part 4 of Spacebound by Tom Fletcher. I'll be back soon with the next part of this fantastic story and loads more stories coming your way very soon. If you'd like to hit a like or subscribe to my channel, that's always appreciated. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.